Okay, well, welcome everyone. Hope everyone got their snow boots out and their mittens and hats and everything. It is Thursday, February 24th. My name is Teresa Omart. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Terwilliger Plaza. And we are here today to learn about passive house design and the interior concepts of our new building called Parkview. A couple things to get started here. I'm going to introduce Bob Johnson, our CEO, and let him welcome everyone. And I think he might want to share a live video of our construction site. Bob?
Yes. Can you see that?
We can see your email.
That I don't want you to see.
You can see you have lots of inbox stuff, so you're going to be busy.
Yeah. How about that?
There we go.
There we go. That should be, there's the live shot. Yeah, first of all, just a welcome to everybody. Great to have you here. Excited to hear from Peter and Emily from LRS Architects again. But here you can see the live feed, and you can see the progress that we are in fact making now. We have one quadrant left there on the upper right hand side of your screen. One quadrant left for level 1, and level 1 is a partial parking and an apartment level, and you can start to see on the bottom portion there that they're starting to put up the concrete shoring for level 2. So progress, and it's really exciting. The most exciting part about that is as you walk on 5th Avenue, the top of the screen, the street on the top of the screen there, you can really start to see the building come out of the ground. So it's coming out of the ground and going up, and really exciting. So again, welcome everybody. Great to have you here. And I will stop sharing, and away we go. You're muted.
It is that. Was strange. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Bob. And let's see, we also have a couple board members on the call, Roger Wirt and Ron Mabin. Is there another, hi Ron, hi Roger.
Oh, wow.
I don't think, let's see, is there another board member? I know there were several registered. Anybody else that we missed that I didn't see come in? No, okay, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us. This is always, it's always nice to have board members aboard. So we do have a chat box. We did ask when you registered for this meeting, we asked for some questions, and we received several, so that's great. If you have some as we go along that you think of, just put them in the chat box. We will do everything we can to answer all the questions today. If not, we have Lori taking notes and documenting questions, so we will get back to you if we can't answer them today. Let's see, so quick update for those of you. So just so everyone knows, there's a lot of people on this call who are already Parkview members. So those are people who've already chosen a home and put a deposit down. That's maybe about half of the people. And then roughly the other half are people who are just kind of starting to learn about Parkview, maybe know a little bit, maybe learning about Terwilliger Plaza. So we have a nice mix. So for those of you who are just learning, Parkview is our newest addition. It is 127 new apartment homes just across the street from our main campus. It will be connected by a sky bridge. And then right now we're slated to open August of 2023, and we're a little over halfway reserved right now. So after your time here today and whatnot, if you think you might want more information about Parkview, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to us. We also have in our current campus, just so everyone knows, we have actually, I think 8 or 9 people who are moving here now or already live here now who will also be going to Parkview. So wanted to let everyone know we do have homes open right now just in the tower. We are sold out in the Heights. So if you think you want to come early, there are potential tax benefits for that. So reach out to us. We are still honoring 2021 pricing right now in the tower. So next, I want to introduce my team. I have Jessica Moon and JoJo. These two ladies are membership counselors, so I know most of you have talked to one or both of them. And then we also have Lori, who's our marketing assistant. There she is. And one new addition to the team, we have Michael, and there's Michael. Michael is joining us to help out with all of you for Parkview. Those of you who are moving forward, he'll be meeting with you to select finishes and choose things about electrical changes and things like that. So welcome, Michael. Thank you. And then finally, I want to introduce our speakers today. We have two speakers. We have Peter Houseknecht. He's our lead architect with LRS Architecture here in Portland. Peter is incredibly passionate about sustainable design and specifically about passive house design. So listen up, because we have an expert in the house today about passive house design. And then we have Emily Lagarde. She's our interior designer, also with LRS Architecture. And Emily specializes in senior living design. So we're very fortunate to have her as well. Let's see, Peter, like I said, he's going to talk about passive house design and really what truly makes this building a one of a kind, not just in Portland, but across the entire nation. So we're very fortunate. We already have people from all over the country kind of watching us and watching this project. So it is very unique. And then Emily's going to help us learn about the interior design concepts and some of the interior spaces in Parkview. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Peter.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So passive house, you can go to the next slide. But passive house is a performance-based sustainable design program that was originally developed in Germany. And it maximizes the building energy efficiency, it reduces the ecological footprint, and in doing so, it requires very little heating and cooling to operate the building. And so this is all substantiated with a lot of energy modeling. In fact, we use 2 different energy models for this. And this was a very passionate thing, actually, for a lot of the existing residents on campus to do a sustainable project and start making a response to climate change and all the other environmental issues that are going on in the world. So I was really excited to be able to have this opportunity to do this on this project. Right now, this is the largest senior living passive house project in the United States, and it's in the top 10 in terms of size in the United States as well. There's a few passive house buildings back in New York that are larger than this, but this is definitely one of the largest in the entire country, and certainly on the West Coast currently. But passive house is an up and coming program. It's happening more and more, and it's actually starting in a lot of areas to replace LEED buildings, which you've probably heard a lot of before. And with passive house, it's either you're meeting and really truly reducing your energy needs, or you're not. And it's not a point system, it's performance based. So you have to prove that through energy modeling that you're actually going to save energy. So we can go to the next slide. So to do this, well, some of the other aspects of passive house I'll touch upon here because the next slide gets into what I was going to say. But this also provides 100% fresh air ventilation, and that's part of the program too. And I'll get into more details about that later. But there's going to be a lot more thermal comfort that's going to be much greater in this building than you would experience in a typical building, and I'll explain why in a little bit. And also, this building is going to hold on to its temperature for several days. So if all the power went out, nothing was functioning, this building would still be very comfortable for 3 or 4 days after that event before it would start to fall in temperature. And as a side benefit, it also reduces the noise from outside the building. And we'll talk about that a little more as well. So you can go to the next slide. So these are the kind of elements that make this a passive house building. And as the name implies, everything about this, with the exception of one electric fan, is passive. So everything's inherent in the building. There's nothing that's going to degrade the performance by not operating something or something not operating at top efficiency. This is all mainly in the building shell. And to kind of put it in a nutshell, what we're doing is actually, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the thermos and coolers, and where you put a hot beverage in there and it's still hot hours later, compared to a cup which would lose its heat right away. And similarly with a food cooler, say if you put ice in it or you go the other direction, put something hot in it, it's going to retain that for a long time. Well, we do the same thing with a passive house building. So the envelope of the passive house building is the part of the building that you actually live in, that we would heat and cool. And so that entire perimeter, we insulate really well, we make it airtight, and all the openings in that, be it windows and doors, are also treated for thermal performance. So we're getting as close to that thermal model, if you will, thermos model rather, as we can in the building. So we start off by actually analyzing the climate of the specific site that this building has gone on. And then we run energy models that are very sophisticated to tell us what this building needs, but also to guide the design as we go along. And then we recheck it in the model to make sure that we're actually achieving the results that we want to do. So we have about 50% more insulation in this building for this location of the country, in the walls and the roof. And as I mentioned, everything is airtight in the walls and the roof, which makes a big difference in terms of thermal comfort. And then we also pay a lot of attention to thermal bridging. And that's simply, to give you a simple example, that if you were to hold a piece of metal, hold it over a flame, you wouldn't be able to hold it very long because that metal would be very hot. Well, if you can imagine, there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of connections in a building to assemble the building and put it together. And so every place that there's metal, thermal energy is traveling through that. And when you have, even though they're small, lots of fasteners that are metal, there's lots of avenues for energy to flow in and out of the building. So what we do is we go in and interrupt those as much as we can with what we call thermal breaks. The insulation is part of that because we have continuous insulation around the entire building. So even though we have metal studs, because this is a non-combustible high rise, we also put additional blankets over the outside of the building so that metal is covered up. And so that's one example that for major structural connections, we're adding thermal breaks in there with different materials to interrupt the energy flow out of the building. And then we also are shading the windows. The nature of multifamily buildings where you have high occupancy, it's kind of similar to an office building where everybody's given off heat. And actually the occupants, the lights, fixtures, and the appliances, even though they're all efficient, are actually going to supply most of the heat in this building. The cooling loads of this building, because of the occupancy and having lots of people in it, was 3 times that of the heating loads. So you can imagine it's very important for us to keep the solar heat gains at a minimum in this building. And this is all part of the analysis that we do through modeling. So the other factor we have of this is high performance European design windows, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And as I noted, we have a continuous fresh air ventilation system that actually captures the energy that's in the building and pre-tempers the fresh air coming in before it's delivered, and we save a lot of energy that way. We're also having solar panels on the roof. All lighting is LED, and all the kitchen appliances have been carefully selected to be very high efficiency and long life too, because we don't want to be throwing these things out after a few years. And then we've also added ceiling fans in the living rooms and the master bedrooms to provide a little additional comfort. So you can go to the next slide. So these are an example of the windows here, and these are called tilt and turn windows. And so they swing open like a car door or a casement, if you will. And then you can see in the middle figure there, they tilt for ventilation. And actually in that position, these windows are very secure still. So what makes these extra special is the frames have insulation value. The glass is triple pane. The window frame to window is actually triple sealed, and then it has multi-point locking. So it has several points around the window where the window latches onto the frame, and this keeps the seals very tight through. So these are airtight windows and very high performance thermal windows, if you will. And a side benefit of that is they reduce noise in the building because of the sealing and the triple glazing. And it's quite dramatic, actually. So that in combination with how we're treating the walls, also making them airtight, putting an extra insulation in, is going to isolate a lot of noise from outside the environment into the building. We also have an acoustical consultant that has worked with us throughout the development of this building. So we've also addressed the interior spaces as well throughout the building, as well as getting their input as to how much soundproofing we needed to do on the exterior envelope of the building itself. So part of the other benefit of Passive House is that we're saving so much energy. We were allowed to increase the size of the windows and let in more indirect daylight into the spaces, which everybody enjoys. So this is just an example diagram of the solar shading that we're doing, and we also did studies on this to make sure that we're shading the windows enough to achieve the performance that we need. And these are mostly on the south, east, and the west side of the building. The north side, we don't have these so much simply because we don't have much in the way of direct sun on that part of the building. So these were all tuned to the exposure of the building and what side of the building it was on and how much solar energy it was going to get from there. So, and of course, you know, when the sun is lower during the winter, so there'll be more direct light coming in at those times when it's more welcome. So you can go to the next slide, please. So this is a diagram of the fresh air ventilation system, and it's a central system in the building. So there's 4 of these units on top of the building, and this is the only thing that's that you could call non-passive in the building because it requires fans to draw the air out of the building and then to draw fresh air in. So all the air inside the building, none of it is recirculated in the building. It's all exhausted through the units and the public amenity spaces throughout the building. And what it does is it sends it into this box up on the roof, and there's a series of ducts inside this box. And what it does, without mixing the 2 air volumes, is it pre-tempers the fresh air coming in to within a few degrees of the air that's leaving the building. And the benefit of this is it saves a lot of energy. So if you can imagine, if during the winter, like today, if we were drawing in 30-degree air from outside, and your unit was 68, we'd have to make up 38 degrees and heat that air. But if the fresh air coming into your unit is within, say it's 65, 62 degrees, we only have to use a little bit of energy to bring that up to the temperature you desire. And every unit's going to have its own thermostat, by the way. So we're not going to impose upon you what temperature you need to keep your unit at, but you will have continuous insulation or ventilation rather, that's fresh air coming in 24/7. And everything that's being exhausted out of your unit will not be reintroduced to your unit. That'll be exhausted to the outside. So this will also help with thermal comfort as well, because it's not going to feel as drafty in your unit, and you're not going to feel cold, fresh air coming in from the source. And this air is also delivered into your HVAC unit that's in the ceilings of your units. So any further tempering that's needed to bring it to the exact temperature will be carried forth through that equipment. So you can go to the next slide. So this is another example how we save a lot of energy in the building. So there's 2 appliances in particular that are usually ducted to the outside of the building. And one of them is the kitchen hood, which this is a diagram of. And you can see on the left, the typical way is we just simply draw air out of the building, we filter it, and then pump it outdoors. Well, these run at a fairly high CFM, meaning it's pulling a lot of air out of your space. So if you heated or cooled your indoor space and we're sucking all that out and just blowing it outside, well, that requires a lot of energy because we have to replace that air that's lost, and we have to either heat or cool that air to your desired temperature. So what this unit does, and it's a very high performance and very expensive unit, is this has 3 stages of filtration. So the first stage removes the grease from the exhaust air coming off your stove. The second reduces the odors, and the third reduces the smoke, as you can see on the diagram on the left. And then it reintroduces it back into the unit, but it's already been scrubbed by this 3-stage filtration. And then in addition to that, the return air for the fresh air ventilation system, we located a vent that's in the kitchen and in the bath. So if anything should escape this, it'll be picked up by that system and exhausted out of the unit. But this is, we actually field tested this unit, and by cooking some very smoky bacon and everything, and it really does a marvelous job of taking that, all the smoke and grease and smell issues out of the equation. So and it saves a lot of energy in the process, which I mentioned. So next slide. So these are the washers and dryers, and the dryer for this is also ductless. And we also did extensive testing on this. Terwilliger actually has units in their laundry department, which they've been using, I think, for probably 1.5 years, 2 years now, and are still extremely happy with it. And for the same reasons, ducting out dryer air would also waste a lot of energy in the process. So what these units do, they're operated by heat pumps. So they're extremely efficient, incredibly so. And in addition to that, the dryer doesn't cook your clothes so much. It condenses the clothes out of there, and it takes just a slightly small amount of extra time to do so. But these are quiet machines. They don't introduce a lot of heat into the unit or humidity into the unit. And the discharge from the dryer that takes the water out of your clothes to dry them actually discharges into the same pipe that your washer discharges into. And then, as you can see on the left, there's filters that are easily accessible from the front for the lint, and so that you can take that out after each load. So these are the other side benefit of these units, is they're extra kind to your fabrics because they're not overheating them to a crisp. It operates at a much lower temperature to dry your clothes. And these are smaller size units than you would normally see in the US, but they're designed to handle up to 18 pounds of laundry in a single load. And they've been used in Europe for like 20, 25 years. And so these are, not new technology, more new to us in the US, but they've been around a long time in Europe. And Miele is one of the best appliance makers in the world. So we feel very, very confident with these. So the next slide. So this shows the solar panels on the roof, and actually we also have a green roof both on the Sky Bridge and the Parkview roof itself. And this does several things. One, we're producing electricity with the solar panels, and then we're also filtering all the stormwater that falls on the building, either through the green roof or through stormwater planters, which you can see an example of in the middle lower picture there. And we have some of those around the perimeter of the building and in the courtyard itself. And so what this does is it naturally cleans the rainwater prior to introducing it back into the city system. And it also retains that water for a while. So after a rain event, there's not this big deluge coming through the system, but it helps retain some of it and allow it to trickle out over time, which is just like Mother Nature would do with landscape and rainwater trickling down into a stream, and it gets cleaned and filtered before it re-enters the stream. So this is very beneficial from an environmental standpoint. And then another interesting side effect is that the solar panels shade the green roof, which helps keep it from drying out. And in turn, the evaporation off the green roof helps cool the solar panels, which helps improve their efficiency. So this is a really exciting kind of symbiotic relationship between the two. So, and it also provides a little bit of habitat. It's going to be a lot nicer to look at, than a raw commercial roof. And the other advantage of this is what we call inverting the roof. So the roof membrane is actually that protects the building and keeps it dry is underneath all this. And by putting a green roof on it, we actually improve the life of this roof at least double. And some people think that it may actually triple the life of the roof, because what degrades roof membranes is ultraviolet rays and thermal cycling, where the sun hits it in the day and it expands, cools at night, contracts, and it's constantly, how should you say, kind of exercising itself and expanding and contracting every day of its life. Well, with the green roof and insulation over it, all that's very stable. The roof is kept out of the sunlight, and it's kept in a very thermally stable environment, so it's not thermally moving a lot. And so that's what gives it a very long life, which saves operational costs over time. And then we have 12 inches of rigid insulation on top of this roof, so it's extremely well insulated and is going to lose very little heat. So we've also added green walls, which you can see an example of in the lower left. Those are around the west walls and around the entry. Those were really the only two real opportunities to do it because of the amount of windows that we have on the east, west, and north. Actually, on all the other buildings, facades, except for some of the west facade that's facing the existing campus. So that's where the majority of the green walls are. The rest of them have very large windows to take in the marvelous views that are of downtown, the river area, and then the Terwilliger hillside as well. So, and then these two actually work to reduce the heat island effect, which you may have heard some in the press about, which is where things get very hot in the city because of all the asphalt pavement, concrete pavement, so on and so forth, that absorbs a lot of heat. And during hot days, it makes it even hotter as you're walking around town. So this will contribute to help keep things a little cooler around this building. So I think next slide. And so what does Passive House mean to members? Well, you're going to be a lot more thermally comfortable, more so than any building you've ever been in your life. And you're going to be as comfortable in this building sitting right next to the window as you would be sitting in the interior. You're not going to feel this draft or cold radiating from the windows. And it's also, your unit's going to be very quiet. You're not going to have to make any lifestyle changes. I mean, this building is going to save energy almost regardless of what you do. And so you will have opportunities by turning off lights, turning off your appliances when you're not using them to further contribute to reducing your energy usage. But otherwise, you can just go about your life and not even have to think about this. There's nothing for you to operate. We're not going to ask you to sacrifice your comfort by keeping your unit cooler or keeping it warmer during the summer. You're going to have your own personal thermostat, as I mentioned, and so you won't have to tolerate extra hot or extra cold days because we have a fully robust heating and cooling system in the building. And as I mentioned, you can be really proud of living here because this is one of the largest passive house buildings in the country. And that is quite a feat to do that on a building of this size and complexity. And so this is really a state-of-the-art building, in current day. So, and it's also a very up and coming program. So you're going to be seeing more and more of Passive House as we go along here because this really works. And that's what allows us to get this certified. So I think I will turn it over to Emily at this point to talk more about the interior design and the concepts of that.
Yes, thank you, Peter. So first we will talk about the public space, the amenities, and then we will give you a quick overview of some of the apartment homes finishes. So here is the Parkview interior design public spaces inspiration. It has been inspired by the Pacific Northwest and more specifically by the beautiful mountains that you can see from the building. So you can see Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens, and Mount Hood. And by the way, I think there is a behind her, you can see, maybe not, or we can check at the end, but as a beautiful picture that has been taken from the crane on site of Montwood. So the color palette here that you see on the right, it's a contrast between warm and cold color, and it's to give you that feeling of being in front of a fireplace, cozy, warm after maybe a walk in the snow. We have a lot of contrast also in finishes, and we try to create something that is vibrant and bringing some visual interest to the space. So you can see on the left the keyword that were given to us by the community. The space needs to feel truly home. We will incorporate some historic elements. It also needs to be memorable and of course have sustainability elements. So this is inspiration images that have been pulled from different sources. It was to give us a direction for the interior design. We know that art is very important for the members. So key areas will have art integrated into the architecture. We also will have some design elements and accessories that will pay tribute to the history and the root of the community. The space will feel comfortable, more like a home, not like an hotel. We really want that feeling of warm, homey interior design. So Terwilliger Plaza is passionate about sustainability, and the finishes were carefully selected for their sustainable properties and non-toxic content. For example, the picture here on the middle is one of the flooring offering for the unit. And it has a floor score certification, which certifies that the indoor air quality is really good, that there is no toxic VOC, volatile organic component coming from that floor. We also have some other certifications that, like the Declare certification, which confirms that the product has an healthy content and will be free of any of the red list chemical. So basically a manufacturer, they have to list all the ingredients that is in their product, and then it will be certified by the Declare standard. So this is just an example on how we were also sustainable inside the building. Here is an overview of the lobby. So this is level 1. Here you have a little key plan showing you the building footprint as well as the level. So we are in that corner, southwest corner, level 1 and level 2. So the lobby has also a mezzanine on level 2 that is open to the space. And here you can see an enlarged plan of that lobby with the main entry as well as the valet. So you can drive your car, give it to the valet that will park your car, and you can just take the elevator to go to your apartment or to go to the mezzanine level here. So the mezzanine level will have a nice fireplace seating. It will also be connected to the courtyard. It's a secured courtyard we will see in the next page. Next. So this is an overall plan of level 2. So we zoomed out and now we see the entire building. Here on that lower left is a lounge that we just talked about with the elevator. So you can arrive here from the lobby, from the parking garage, into that lounge and the connection to that large courtyard. We will see a rendering of that courtyard in the next slide. At that level, you also have some meeting rooms that can be booked by residents, and a sunroom. It's actually something, an amenity that you have at every level, that sunroom. from level 1 to level 9. So this is actually a rendering of the courtyard that we created to give you a feel of the space. In that courtyard, we also have some inspiration images here of what you will have. We'll have barbecue, 2 barbecue at that level, but also 2 barbecue on the rooftop level. We'll have multiple choice for seating, benches, tables, soft seating, and we also have a bocce ball on the rooftop. So it's really fun to be able to go there with your friend, play bocce ball, and maybe have a little barbecue afternoon. So we are going up to level 6 now. Level 6 feature a large auditorium for big events, but can also be divided into 3 rooms for like smaller gathering. That level also has a lounge area. Here we again have those elevators that were in the lobby. So you can reach every level from those elevators. And you also have an elevator on that side here that is also going through every levels. That lounge level is connected by a bridge to the existing buildings. Like Teresa told you at the beginning, there is multiple buildings in the campus and every buildings are connected to each other. So you don't have to go out in the street. You can just use bridges, corridors to go from one building to another. Here is a rendering, actually 2 renderings of that lounge area with the bridge. So there is a lot of glazing and natural light. We try as much as possible to bring daylight into our buildings because we know it's important for well-being and to help with the circadian cycle, which is your internal clock. That lounge will feature large 3D sculptural elements. We know art is very important for Terwilliger Plaza community, so we try to integrate art into the building. That ceiling is almost like a piece of art to me. It reminds me of also the snow on the mountain. This lounge feature a bar where you can have events. You can have like a tea time with friends, maybe a wine tasting, and then you can enjoy like some sitting by the window or have a large gathering with friends here. On that view, you can see the bridge that links to the existing building. And in that bridge, we will actually have flexible display for art. So maybe some rotating exhibition will happen in that space. And at that same level, so I was telling you about the auditorium, here you can see a rendering of that auditorium. So this is a setting for a large event with a stage, maybe for like a music event, music concert. Terwilliger Plaza has a lot of arts musician, musical artists, if I can say. So you can create, some nice concert in that space. All the chairs can be stored into the storage. And then you can divide the space into 1, 2, and 3 different rooms. And each of those rooms can be used for maybe, smaller events. You want to have a lecture with friends, maybe art discussion or something like that. You can also use those smaller rooms. So now we will talk about the unit finishes. We created 3 different schemes with each their own design, feel, and style. And they are all inspired by the surroundings of Portland. So the first one is Mount Hood, then we have Marquam, and then West Hills. So Mount Hood is inspired by Oregon highest mountain and the beautiful scenery, the serene atmosphere. It's more like contemporary lines that remind of the crisp landscape, the warm and cozy feeling on the fireplace. Then Marquam is inspired by Portland Nature Park and all the majestic trees of Oregon. It used natural materials, texture, and color to create a connection with the outdoor. It's also known as biophilia or biophilic design. And finally, West Hill, it's inspired by the grand homes of the historic, prestigious address. It's more a modern, classic design with earthy color. Here is an example of a Mount Hood atmosphere feel. You can see in that unit that there is some wormwood. We also have in the finishes offering some countertop with veining that remind us of natural stone, natural elements. There is also a fireplace in the offering that you will see. This is a Marquam example. This is a courtyard unit, so you can see the landscaping here of the courtyard. It's more lighter wood tones. It's so inspired by the nature. It creates a restorative space to connect with the outdoor. And finally, West Hills. It's an example of a corner unit. It's higher up, so you have the city view. You can see some of those mountains. It has darker tones, a little bit of metallic accent. It's almost like an Art Deco influenced interior design. Thank you for listening, and now we are open to questions.
Great, thank you, Emily and Peter. Like I said, we did get several questions before the event, so I want to try to answer those, and then there's a few in the chat room already. So if you have others you want to add to the chat room, please feel free to do that. Let's see, someone asked about details on the appliances. And Jean, I think that was you. I think Peter did talk about the washer and dryer and the range hood. So if you can put anything in the chat room that you want additional information on, hopefully we can answer that for you. So let's see here. A question about emergency exit plan. Peter, I know you have a little bit of information on that. And then, you know, of course, Terwilliger Plaza will have our own safety plan and evacuation plan and so forth once the building is occupied.
Yeah, there's 4 emergency exits out of this building. 3 of them are accessible, and 2 are on the north side and 2 are on the south side. So it's kind of hard to describe the exiting plan out of this, but basically every point at grade that we had access to because of the slope of the site, we have an emergency exit out of. And 3 of them are ramped or are on grade.
Jessica, somewhere here.
Thank you. You did talk a lot about the airflow and the 24/7 fresh air ventilation. We do have a question specific to things like COVID.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, none of the air is going to be recirculated in this building. So everything exhausted is sent directly to the outdoors, and 100% fresh air is being brought in through the top of the building and then distributed through the building through that heat recovery system that I mentioned. So from that standpoint, you're getting fresh air. You're not getting something that's been potentially tainted and then recirculated in the building.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We did kind of along those lines, we have questions about the exhaust unit filters. I know they are, the question really is more about how do we clean them, and does the member clean them, and are they easy to clean? I know Terwilliger Plaza, that's one of the nice things about moving into a community like this is you get to say goodbye to home maintenance. So we take care of that. But Peter, I don't know if off the top of your head, if you have information on like the MERV rating and the quality of the filters.
Well, the MERV rating, I forget the exact number, but I think it's around 16 for the fresh air ventilation. But again, that's drawing air from the outdoors. And then, really that's the only filtration in there. There's nothing for you to, for anybody to fuss with for the units that are inside the building.
Perfect. So a current member is asking about adding walls, doors, and eliminating some things, and the answer to that is mostly. We do have some ability to customize homes, and we will, if you've already reserved, we will be reaching out and actually sending you the schedule very soon here, but some things due to our incredibly challenging supply chain issues in the world today, some things such as doors, we will not be able to make any changes to doors right now. We have already had to place the door order. So our door manufacturer basically said, if you can't place it soon, then you may not get the doors. So you may not have doors. So, and we don't want to open without doors. So we had to place that door order. So there's some things like that, you can't change now, but perhaps after we open, we can look at some alterations, but there is some cost involved to the member for architecture fees to redraw if you want to do something really, really customized, say in your kitchen. But yes, there are some opportunities for customization depending on what it is you may need to pay to have that put back when you move out someday. So, but yeah, we can definitely talk about those individual things. And Suzanne, I made a note that you had that question, so we'll reach out to you and maybe schedule your appointment a little bit sooner than later. Talking about this with a sustainable design, what is the cost to build in relation to normal construction costs, kind of that ROI question? It's definitely not less expensive to build a passive house.
No, there's a premium to it. And, we've kept that down around 2.5%, 3% of the total construction cost. And a lot of that took a lot of work to do, but it's basically doing this without getting into exotic forms of construction and to use conventional construction to do this, but paying attention to the details that will provide the performance of this building.
The initial, as we're figuring this, the initial payback that we are figuring on that, and that's based on that, $2.5 to $3 million premium in order to build a passive house standards. We're calculating the initial payback on that between 13 and 15 years, which is remarkable because we anticipate that we'll be using 53% less energy. Now, we're talking about a building that's going to last for decades. So the initial payback, return on the initial investment is in that 13 to 15 year time frame. But we will continue to reap those rewards financially throughout the full life of that building, which is the beauty of the passive house construction, is because you build it that way and it lasts as long as the building lasts.
Right, and that's not taking into account energy incentives that were available and other financing benefits that reduce the interest payments on the loan. And also we did a life cycle cost analysis on the building based on a 30-year period when a lot of maintenance has to be done at that point in time. And with all that factored in, we calculated it would be about an additional $2 million savings on top of the payback in that time period, just from energy savings and maintenance savings.
That's great, thank you. We have a couple questions about windows, and also windows, like how far do they open, and also how do they work in relation to the blackout shades? I don't know if that might be something, Emily, you can talk about.
So how far the windows open? I think, Peter, you might want to take that one. I mean, I know the tilt, when the window is just tilted, it's like a 10 or 15
few inches, yeah.
Yes. but then you can also open it like a regular, let's say, regular
Okay.
window case. Yes.
Yeah, like a hinge door.
Mm-hmm. And so that will open probably at, I don't know, like 90 degree or something like that.
Yeah, substantial. So it's it does swing into the unit, and there's a simple handle that's on the side that you turn it one way to get it to tilt, turn it the other way to get it to swing, and these operate quite easily. You know, the hinges on them are substantial, so you're not going to be struggling with you know, a window that's very hard to slide like you would normally see in a house. These are more like a BMW door.
Yes, and about the shade, so because the windows are tilting, we need the shade to be installed into the window bead. So the shade is actually attached to the window and will tilt with the window. We have standard shade that is not a blackout, it's just a filter for the sun, you know, the sunshine. But then we have in the offering booklet, we have a blackout one, which is basically, it's hard to describe, but you can, you have the light filtering and the blackout that are attached together, and you can reduce one and make the other bigger, or, you know, you can,
can
I can
adjust
send,
it.
yeah, you can adjust it. I can send you more information about that. But the blackout should work very well because it's attached to the window. So you shouldn't have much light, you know, that can enter the room.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, we have definitely in some of the meetings we've already been having about finishes and whatnot. We've had a lot of people ask about those. So we might need, maybe when we open our design center, we can have an example of the shades. So,
Yes.
Great. Let's see. Is a ceiling fan an option in the second bedroom? This is a question from someone who has a Lovejoy home reserved already. Jorge, will need to look at the ceiling height. I've jotted that down. I believe the answer will be yes, but I want to double check the ceiling height and double check that with Peter before I say yes. Let's see. How much guest parking will we have? I don't know that answer, Jan. Peter, do you happen to know how many guest parking spots we have?
Well, we have quite a few over the one per unit. You know, there's 127 units and we have about 170 parking spaces, but I don't know how all those are going to be assigned.
Okay, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah, that will be, that is to be determined, but we will, you know, we do have significant space in there for visitors. And all visitors that will be parking, that will be visiting at Parkview will have valet parking.
All right, what types of homes remain available, Victor? That's a great question. Right this particular moment as we speak, we have at least one of every type of home available. However, Wallace style and Eastmoreland style, we only have one each of those. So definitely let us know which ones you're kind of thinking you might be most interested in, and we can let you know what's available on what floor. We definitely sold from the top down. So for example, the Lovejoys overlooking Dunaway Park, south facing, I think we've only got 2 of those left on the second floor. So those have been incredibly popular. Earthquake design, we can't do one of these without earthquake questions. So Peter, I'll let you talk about that one.
Okay. Well, at the time we designed the building, we actually followed the future code, which is now the current code in the design of this. So we're a leg up in that regard, because otherwise, due to the length of time it takes to design and get these buildings permitted, codes change. So we wanted to do a little bit extra for this building. So it's actually a code ahead of where it would be otherwise.
And how about going back to the air system? We talked a little bit about it, how it would perform with things like COVID. What about forest fire?
Yeah, well, forest fire, I mean, we don't have a specific system per se, but this is going to provide you with, very clean and very fresh air. If the smoke is really bad outside, it might be a matter of ventilation system might want to be turned off temporarily, which won't be a problem for the building. All the windows are operable, but if it's super smoky outside, probably want to shut that system down until the smoke clears, and so we're not drawing anything into the building.
Let's see, we have a question about price difference between the 3 interior designs. So there's actually not a price difference between the different designs that Emily mentioned. Where the price differences come in is 2 ways. It's on the type of home, like the style, square footage, and design of the home, like layout, and also what floor you're on. But all of the homes, what happens is you pick a home, and then there's a standard package of finishes that you get to choose from. You could decide to choose everything from the standard and not pay a dime for any additional upgrades for cabinet colors and cabinets and paint and carpet and floor, things like that. But if you wanted to upgrade, say maybe add heated flooring to the bathroom, or upgrade to painted cabinetry instead of wood cabinetry, you can certainly do that. So there's lots and lots of options for upgrades, but there's some really, really lovely standard options too that you can certainly choose from and not pay anything extra on top of your membership fee. EV plugins in the garage. Yes, we do have them, and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have planned ahead, and we have, we know we're probably gonna have to add more. But yeah, we have those. So lots of opportunity if you want to visit us and get a little feel for what life might be like at Terwilliger. Be happy to have you be our guest at any of those events. And finally, our design center, for those of you who don't know, we are remodeling the 2nd floor of a building across the street right now, which will become our Parkview Design Center, where we will have, I'm looking at all these sample boards right now that Emily has put together for us, but all the samples of the carpet and the paint and the tile, everything that you will get to select from when you make your choices for Parkview, we'll have all of that available in a really nice, comfortable setting, so you can come and hang out and look through stuff and meet other Parkview members. So we're anticipating that will open. We'll be able to invite you into that space in early May, maybe mid-May, where supply chain issues pending. So yeah, so I'd like to thank Peter and Emily so much. I know you guys are incredibly busy, and just thank you very much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us too.